I'm sitting on the ground, and I can smell the gunpowder. I can hear the mortars. I can hear everything. And I'm trying to put my guts back inside. And this time you're screwed. You're dead. You're going to die slow, and it's probably going to be painful as all hell. And I can smell the gore. And everything. And all of a sudden, I'm bathed in a white light. I'm screaming, and my wife is laying on the floor over by the doorway. I turned the light on, and I realized I'm not covered in blood. I'm covered in sweat. I'm smelling the gore because I avoided the bed. It was full of my manure and my urine. And she and I looked at each other, and we knew that I was not okay.
You face battles most never fought, pain, struggle, adversity. But here, we use that as fuel. This is the Battle Harder podcast, where we motivate, educate, and inspire warriors of life, veterans, survivors, leaders. We share stories and strategies to turn pain into progress. Here's your host, Coach Rob. Let's lock in and battle harder.
What is up, everybody? It's your host, Coach Rob, here at the Battle Harder podcast, where I hope to motivate, educate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. I've been looking forward to this conversation as he is the first Vietnam veteran that I've had on the show. I think it's important to highlight their stories, especially while they are still here on this earth. And before that, after that, he was also a lawyer, and he also wrote a book and is a current author. And we're going to get into all that good stuff right here on the podcast. So I'd like to welcome to the show, Rand Timmerman. Rand, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Coach Rob. I'm really excited about this. Appreciate it.
So before we get started into the conversation, just give everybody a little bit background of who you are and what you currently do.
Well, I'm a retired attorney, as you said in the intro. I grew up in upstate New York, in a very rural area. Went into the United States Marine Corps in 1966. I graduated high school and started college, but the Vietnam War had started up, and I was inspired to enlist. So I went overseas and served our country with the 1st Marines, and they made me a temporary lieutenant. And they called him Mustang. In World War II, they called them combat lieutenants. You know, just somebody to fill that billet because the casualties were so high. And when I came back, they said, well, you can go back to corporal or you can become a real officer. So I went to OCS, Officer Candidate School, the basic school. And then by a real fluke, I ended up being a JAG officer. And I was supposed to go back to Vietnam, but I never did. I had a guardian angel. I didn't know it, but I did. And he sent me to JAG school. I became a JAG officer. And every time I was supposed to go back to Vietnam, they sent me down. I would have been a forward observer if I went back. And he would send me down to Roosevelt Roads base in Puerto Rico for 30 days to do Article 32 trials. And then I'd come back. Oh, wow. Yeah. So you know, I ended up getting married, having a kid, went to Syracuse University, got my BA degree, and got my Juris Doctorate degree, and graduated in 1975. I had a great career. I was traumatized by the war. My brother was too. He was a combat Army guy. And we ended up, I did okay. I had an alcohol problem. I knew that real young, Rob. And for a long time, it wasn't a big deal, but kind of got me in the end. And then my brother, when he came back, he married our mother's best friend, who was 14 years older and with 7 kids divorced.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But you know what? He became an airline pilot and a commercial pilot, I should say. They moved to Utah. They became Mormons. He ended up with, she had 7 kids. They ended up with 27 grandkids. And now 30 great-grandchildren.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And Edie passed in 2017 in November. And my brother was devastated. And the emotional pain was so bad that he decided that he was going to try to mask it and cover it up and patch it up with physical pain by hiking the Appalachian Trail.
How old was he when he did that?
71. I was 72. He's my younger brother.
Wow.
So we ended up down in Springer Mountain, Georgia on March 22nd in the snow, starting out hiking the 2,200-mile Appalachian Trail to Katahdin Mountain in Maine. It is the longest, a lot of people don't know this, it is the longest footpath trail only in the whole world. It goes over 600 mountains. It has 500,000 feet of elevation changes. About 3 million people walk on the Appalachian Trail every year, some part of it, About 2,500 to 3,000 actually try to go the whole way, and of that, 17% make it. That's about 450 to 500 people a year. It is.
And like, how many days does it typically take to do this? And were you and your brother successful, or did you quit at some point?
It took us about nine months over 3 years. I did not make it the whole way. I only walked 1,863 miles, according to my brother. So I didn't make the last 300 miles. My brother finished it with his son, who was 62 at the time, Rick. So yeah, it was unbelievably difficult. I like to say it was the most difficult thing I ever did when somebody wasn't shooting at me. Because in the war, of course, people are shooting at you. That's really hard. But at least I would get discouraged sometimes. I go, Rand, nobody's shooting at you. What the heck is your problem?
I mean, that's a great way to look at life right there. So what was your job before you became a JAG officer in the Marine Corps? And when you came back from Vietnam, we know that veterans were treated a lot differently back then. You guys weren't, really looked at as heroes. You were really looked down upon. What experiences did you have in that situation, and like, how did you deal with that?
I was an enlisted Marine with the 1st Marines, combat. I actually had an 014 MOS, military specialty, which was a clerk typist. I did that sometimes during the day. I had an 0311, which is infantry. I had an 03, I think it's 40, a machine gunner. I ended up being a machine gunner on helicopters for a period of time. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. In that time frame, the Marine Corps believed that every Marine should be fungible. And by that, I mean you should be able to do anything. You could be sitting on a typing 1 minute, and you could be going out to go on an ambush the next, type of thing. And and I did see a lot of crazy stuff. I could tell you a story all day long. And my brother, similarly, he was a machine gunner on a helicopter down by Chu Lai, which was in the central part of Vietnam. I was up in I Corps, which is the northernmost. We were all over the place, from above Da Nang all the way to the DMZ up in Khe Sanh, all the way over to Laos, all the way over to Quang Tri, right on the coast. I was involved in an amphibious assault at one point, which was totally crazy. I almost got killed on that baby. Yeah. So when I came back, we weren't ready for it, really. When you walk around for 13 months, Coach Rob, with hand grenades, weapons, you're out in the bush, no showers, not much food, horrible, miserable conditions, and you survive all that and a whole bunch of other things, and then you come back home, and it was scary. It was freaky. When I left, they put us in our dress greens, and we were in Okinawa, right? Which is practically on the equator. And we're supposed to get on a plane to come back to LA, and we ended up being on the tarmac in dress greens, which is a wool winter uniform, because this was in December of 1967. So we sat up there for 3 days and 2 nights before I finally got on a plane. And it's, I don't know, what is it, 16 hours to LA? It was a really long flight. And we got off. I was with a bunch of guys. We all went and got our tickets. I'm going to Syracuse, New York. So we, at that point, we're all split up. I went and got to where my flight was, and there's a long line, and I lost my mind.
Wow.
And I walked to the front of the line with my ticket, and I was just, in my mind, I was going to get on that airplane or I was going to die. I didn't care. It was going to be one or the other. And this guy, I don't know, in his 40s, 300 pounds, not all fat either. He was a pretty big guy. Didn't like what I did. And he pushed me and knocked me backwards. and I grabbed one of those stanchions that they have the ropes. I grabbed the one on the end, and I'm coming back at him, and I just lost I was filled with rage, and I'm
I
about
bet.
ready to send him into the promised land with that stanchion. And the next thing I know, I'm surrounded by 4 stewardesses. One of them is taking the stanchion out of my arm, and there's police there, and they arrest him and take him off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the next thing I know, I'm in first class, which was a big mistake. And the pilot comes in and talks to me. So it was a mixed bag, right? Civilians, they don't like veterans. Turned out this guy had been a Marine Corps pilot, I think in the Korean War. Anyway, he comes in and talks to me, and next thing I know, I'm getting free drinks, and I don't remember anything else after that.
So it's nice to hear then that, because all I've ever heard is the bad. I haven't heard any stories about Vietnam veterans getting some sort of accolades or preference or help. And when you were in that heat of battle, like, what was your mindset? What was going on inside of, your heart and soul that you knew you had to survive? Or like, what mentality kept you going through these horrible, nasty, ridiculous conditions?
Yeah. I grew up in a very poor village in Adams, New York. And I got at 5 years old, out of the womb, I looked around, I remember thinking, you're screwed.
Oh, wow.
My father had been a Mustang pilot in World War II, came home, got polio, and was paralyzed from his waist down. We were really very poor village, very poor, surrounded by farms. I was driving tractors at 12 years old. In a way, it was but it was a very hard life. Then going into the Marine Corps was kind of like my French Foreign Legion. I didn't know what the hell to do. I'm going to do something crazy. They started this war. I'd been a Boy Scout. I'm going to serve my country. I'm going to die a hero, or get the Medal of Honor or something. That kind of had that. Then you get over there. The first night in Vietnam, I had just got all my gear from the Army. I had just flown in that day, and now it's in the middle of the night, pitch dark. A guy is taking me to a tent, and just as we're ready to open, the tent is surrounded by sandbags and everything, right? It's not like your tent, and there's a shot. And a guy committed suicide in that tent.
Oh, wow.
Right in front of all of his, mates. They're supposed to go home the next day. And he killed himself. And the reason he killed himself was you would only get your mail like once a month. So these guys had gotten their mail just like we always got, a big packet of mail. This guy, I found this all out afterwards. This guy opened up his mail. He was looking for one letter. He found that letter. He opened it, and it said, "Sweetheart, I hate to have to tell you this, but I met somebody else and I just got married." And of course, they still have all their weapons because we don't know what's going to happen in the middle of the night, or they didn't know. And he picked up the pistol and blew his brains out. That was probably, talk about, and all I could think about, holy crap, what have you done? And then a couple of days later, I'm in a rice paddy, all hell breaks loose. And I go, what the heck have you done? So your mindset, it's very funny that you asked that question. A lot of people want to know, what's it like to kill somebody, right? What's that actually feel like? I had no idea what it was going to be like. I was very well trained along with all my mates. And I was shocked at how much rage I felt. I was lucky because when the fighting started, I would always be like, these bastards are trying to kill me. What the? And I would fight like a maniac most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. So we kind of had that mindset. And then you find, so many things happen. People are in body bags. It's grueling. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And then you get the mindset, all right, I'm going to die here. I'm just going to do the best I can, but it's not looking good. And then finally, they made me a second lieutenant, so I'm doing second lieutenant stuff. I only got a few weeks to go, and I'm like, damn, I might actually go home. I hope so, and I just kind of, I don't know, you just kind of focus. You half your brain's like hopeful, the other half is like, you're screwed. And it's a nightmare. And the thing is, you get used to adrenaline rushes. you get used to hours and hours of tedium, misery, bites. I had a poisonous snake on me at one point. I wrote a story about that. Called a kraut snake. It's the most poisonous snake it's 10 times more poisonous than a cobra. They call it a 3-stepper. If you get bit by one, you're dead. You're dead.
Wow.
That's it. So anyway, you got all that stuff going on. And then, so it's tedium, boredom, misery, and then it's moments of just unbelievable excitement. And then you're still standing. And then it would be exhilarating for about 3 seconds. It'd be like the best moment of your whole life. They're dead, I'm alive. And then you start looking around, because when you have a battle that lasts an hour, it's going to take you 2 days to clean up the mess.
Wow.
You're going to be there picking up bodies. You're going to be looking for stuff. You're going to be, it's a lot of people don't realize. It's not like the movies where you just walk away a hero, and I'd be looking around like, oh shit, Harry's almost dead, and then you're back to the real world. But anyway.
Do you think that's why so many combat veterans, even in my era of being in the military, because of that adrenaline dump, why we chase alcohol and drugs and doing crazy stuff, not mainly always solely on the PTSD or the mental health issues, but just you live that for such a long period of time that when you come back to normal society, it's almost like you don't know how to act because you have to essentially reprogram yourself to be normal again.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The first thing I did was went and bought a big ass motorcycle. I had to have that, and I rode that thing everywhere. I rode it to school. I rode it to work. I rode it to, when I was a lawyer going to court, I would go to court in a 3-piece suit and my briefcase on a motorcycle. I had to have that juice, so to speak, The good thing about veterans is that most of us are really well trained. We're very disciplined people. And when we have a mission, whether it's to be, create a family, get educated, get a job. I was a lawyer. I'm helping people. That's my job. I help people. I get paid for it. I was a litigator. I was in court all the time. So, we're very good at focusing and doing a lot of good stuff. And then you've got this in the background, this noise that's, the part of your brain you don't want to go into without a shotgun and a flashlight. It's there. I'll tell you, the first time I really knew Rob, so when I came back, I'm married, I got a kid. I think I was out of college. It might have been started my first job. And one night and I always thought, this is unbelievable, because a lot of the guys that came back with me were not doing good. Alcohol ruined 2 of their lives, and one of them died quick and one died slow. And I kind of started pushing back and away from those people because I'm trying to move on with my life and, do all the right things. And I drink too much sometimes. But overall life was pretty good. And then one night one of the missions I went on, we ran out of ammo. And I survived, and some of the other guys did. And I used my bayonet.
Oof.
Yeah. And that was a real tough slog. That whole thing went on for about 3-4 days. Anyway, just between fighting and running and hiding and trying to survive. And some of us did. So, but I'm back. My life seems to be good. Everybody looking at me from the other, he's doing really, really good, And then one night, I was back in Vietnam in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, I'm back in Vietnam. I'm in a battle, and it's so real. It's in color. I'm covered with blood. It's my blood. Somebody has ripped me apart with a bayonet.
Wow.
And I'm sitting I think I'm sitting on the ground, and I can smell the gunpowder. I can hear the mortars. I can hear everything, right? And I'm trying to put my guts back inside. And I realize, Rand, this time you're screwed.
Mm.
You're dead. You're going to die slow, and it's probably going to be painful as all hell. And I can smell the gore. And everything. And all of a sudden I'm bathed in a white light, and I open my eyes. I'm screaming, and my wife is laying on the floor over by the doorway with her hand on the switch. She had turned the light on. And I realized I'm not covered in blood. I'm covered in sweat. I'm smelling the gore because I avoided the bed. It was full of my manure and my urine. And she and I looked at each other and we knew that I was not okay. We both knew instinctively. And from that point on, I was, I could tell you other stories. So anyway, I ended up having a lot of nightmares.
Right.
And I worked hard during the day and all that stuff, and I would put the kids to bed and stuff like that. And then I would drink my brains out and go to bed. I've never needed more than 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, which was pretty good in being a Marine, because that's about all you got anyway. And I had a pretty good motor. I always seemed to just do whatever. But so I would use alcohol to either, I wouldn't know I was having the dream or I wouldn't remember them. And sometimes later on, I would feel it coming and I could divert it somehow. I don't know how I did that. But the Vietnam veterans did not have any, PTSD hadn't been invented yet. Right? In World War II, they called it battle fatigue. Well, he's got battle fatigue and he drinks too much. Why can't he? A lot of people don't realize alcohol is a disease.
Right.
It's a disease. Alcoholics' bodies metabolize alcohol differently than normal people. We create acetone that our bodies can't absorb. And acetone is what gives us that feeling that we're thirsty. When my alcoholism took over in my early 60s, I'd start drinking and I wouldn't be able to stop. And I would be a day or two later and I'm out of my mind drinking. I'm thirstier than I was when I was started. I didn't understand that. I couldn't understand what happened to my willpower and everything like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how, like, I mean, obviously you seem fine and we're having this conversation. You're still here, which is awesome. How did you get out of that darkness? And was it support from your wife, help from friends? And you still have like certain issues, sometimes a memory or something that comes back and it bothers you? Because I know for me, with me having PTSD, major depressive disorder, and anxiety, I tell people all the time as I coach people and try to help people, my trauma didn't go away, and I don't think it'll ever go away till the day I'm dead and gone off of this earth. But I've found tools and things to deal with it. So my goal is always to have more good days than bad. And if I could have more good days than bad, then I'm living, a healthy, purposeful, happy life.
Right. I'm glad that's how it worked out for you. How it worked out for me. Now, my brother Ron probably saw as much crap as I did, right? But he never lost his faith in a higher power. I had kind of absolved myself of any desire to have a relationship with a higher power before I went in the Marine Corps. And then when I got to Vietnam and I saw the horrors, I decided there couldn't possibly be a God. Now, Ronnie, my brother, maintained his spirituality. And when he married Edie, they went to Utah and they were Mormons. And my brother became a bishop in the Mormon church. So he always seemed to be able to kind of handle things better. Now, our other brother, who's younger, we would see Ronnie about once a year because he would come east to see all the kids as they grew up and things. And we would hang out, and my younger brother and I would get drunk, and then we'd be, chiding Ronnie for being boring because he didn't drink his brains out like we did. And but Ronnie always had a level of serenity that I was jealous of. I'll be honest. I thought, well, I'm a crazy guy. I do a lot of stuff, but I have way more fun than he does. My motorcycle and all that kind of stuff. And actually, I experienced Ronnie had one of his night terrors while we were hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had a real breakdown. And we ended up just hiking that day. And he ended up being okay. I don't know. That's how we deal with it, right? Now, for me, I had to have a connection with a higher power to get rid of my active alcohol problem. And I had to get into a program to do that. And it took a while. I've been sober now for 11 years.
Nice.
which was kind of a miracle, because if I had been sober, I couldn't have gone on the Appalachian Trail with my brother, right? I would have been of no use to him when he needed me the most. And by the time we did, I had been sober 4 years, and I had already, I had been working with men for 3 years to go through the same process I did. And some of them were vets, not all of them. I like to work with vets, but we are the hardest ones.
Yeah,
We are.
definitely.
Yeah, we got the biggest egos. We got the drive. We got that sense of I can do what I got to do. I'm a man. All the manly, heroic qualities we cherish. And serving our country, we think we should be able to do this on our own. So we have a harder time. That's my experience sometimes. But I really like working with vets, and but anybody that needs help, I will help them if I can. Yeah. So I had to find that connection with a higher power, and at first it was pretty small, but today it's immense. And I go to at least one meeting a day, sometimes two. I'm working with guys every day. My life is a joy every day, because I'm not thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about my problems, right? I'm helping somebody
Right.
else, right? Is the pain still there? Yeah, it's still there at times, for sure. I've joined a couple of veterans groups, and we do writing, and we share our stories to some extent, and I have a great life today.
And we're back. And so let me ask you, do you think that service to others helps you, stay grounded and helps you live a purposeful, happy life? Because obviously for me, as a coach, as a podcast host, everything I do is with a service mindset. I mean, I used to be a police officer after I was in the military, and that was because I wanted to help people that couldn't help themselves. I really had that complex of just wanting to help be as purposeful and giving to as many people as possible. And even to this day, with the things I do, I give as much as I can. Like you said, not just the veterans, but anybody, especially men. My specialty is men over 30, but men that they want to get unstuck in life, whether that's with their fitness, their nutrition, their mental health issues, finding a new job. However I can be of service, using the things I learned in the military, using the things I learned as a police officer, using the things I use to get over my mental health issue. So how important is service to you these days?
Oh, it's vital for sure. It's where I find my joy in life. I'm at that age where there's a lot of all my friends and relatives are, struggling with the road is getting shorter, and most of us don't like it a whole lot.
Right.
I like that commercial you just showed, because it reminded me that we have to take care of ourselves if we're going to take care of other people, right? It's the old analogy that when the air mask drops down, you put it on yourself first so you can help the next, whoever. And so I work out every day. I've been working out every day. I got in the habit in the military. I work out every morning. I do prayers and meditation every morning. I go to the gym. We have to take care of ourselves. I still walk. I'm 80 years old now. I still walk 7-8 miles a day.
Wow.
I walk 2 or 3 times with poles. I have an artificial knee. My body's been pretty well banged up from motorcycle accidents and other craziness, plus some things that happened in the war and, old age in general or whatever. But you got to stay very active. You're not going to be able to be there and be present for other people if you don't take care of yourself, is the point I'm trying to make. And you could, I like to brag that I'm the Olympiest man to ever have walked the Appalachian Trail. Ronnie's son, Rick, took a picture of me. I didn't know it, but a video on it. Like, who the hell is that guy limping all over the mountain? I couldn't believe how bad I limped, because my right leg's a half inch shorter than my left. I ran 26 marathons. You had Colin
Wow.
the other day on. He was talking about the Olympics or the marathons and the ultras and all that.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of them with a bum knee. But it's a lot easier when you're in 30s. I actually won a marathon when I was in my late 30s. Yeah, I won the Rochester, New York marathon. And it was sponsored by Jenny Light, which I loved beer anyway. But so I thought, I'm going to get a great big trophy. Yay, I finally won a race, Well, the trophy was about this big, and they gave me a case of Jenny Light beer, which never made it home.
So why do you think then that so many veterans just give up on health and fitness when they get out of the military? I've never really understood that. I mean, for me, when I first got out, I got severely depressed because, and maybe this was the same for you, as soon as I exited the military, I lost my identity overnight. I lost my friends, I lost my command, I lost my purpose. And that caused me to get into some heavy weight gain. As you saw in the picture, I used to be 300 pounds a long time ago. And I had to really get back into adopt fitness. I tell people that fitness essentially saved my life and it's the cornerstone of all my coaching. But I still don't understand why veterans just kind of give up on trying to be physically fit or be the best version of themselves.
That is a tough question. When I came back from Vietnam and I'm the JAG officer and stuff, guys would come back, chest full of medals and served their country honorably, and they would go on leave and they'd go down to Newport or, they'd go down on Oceanside or wherever for 30 days and get a motel and they'd go in there and start drinking.
Mm.
And then I saw this happen several times, and then they would come back 5 days late.
Oh, wow.
And the next thing you know, they were court-martialed or whatever, and now they're not a sergeant with a chest full of medals, they're a PFC with a chest full of medals. And 30 days in the brig on their books and totally demoralized. Not only did the civilian world not treat us very well, the military did in some ways.
Yeah.
They weren't prepared for what the transition was going to be like. The Marine Corps went from 200,000 average manpower, right? That's what it is today. And that's what it was back then. And then it went up to 1 million and then it went back down by the late 70s.
Wow.
And they just weren't used to it. What we had to do, Rob, was when we left base, we had to be in our dress uniform. Not blues, but whatever the dress uniform was, right?
Wow.
And when we came back, we had to be in our dress uniform before we could get on the base. No utilities. No, you did not go off base in utilities. And we would always go to a gas station as soon as we got off base to get out of our uniform, or when we swooped to go home or something, and we came back and we got to be on base at 7 a.m. at 6:30. We're in the closest gas station changing into our uniform. That's how it was.
Wow.
So we didn't have to take the crap walking around in our military uniforms. Like nobody could tell we were in the military, So, congratulations to you too for turning your life around. How long were you in the military?
I was in the Navy for 10 years from 97 to 2007. And
Wow.
My last stint in the military was actually Operation Iraqi Freedom. Now, luckily, I guess God, the universe had other plans for me. I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom aboard the USS Kennedy aircraft carrier. So luckily, I didn't see combat. As soon as we got back to NAS Mayport in Jacksonville, where I was stationed, I was literally home for maybe a month. And I got called into the Helo squadron I was attached to. And the commander's like, oh, well, so during Operation Iraqi Freedom, they had what they called IA, internal augment, and they would basically take so many people from each command, and you would go to Army warrior training, and then you would go straight to combat. And so I'm literally back like a month. I get called back into the Helo squadron. The commander, he's like, hey, we have to send someone to war. And since you're the military police officer, guess what? You're going. And he really didn't like me that much because at that time, there was never master at arms or military police in Helo squadrons. But because they needed more places to put us, they said, hey, we'll put these guys in squadrons. They can, regulate the squadron. Well, squadrons were typically about taking care of themselves. They didn't want any outsiders in because that means if your people are in trouble, they're going to get in trouble. They can't cover anything up. They can't protect their people. So they would send me, like when we were out to sea, I'd be at the ship police department. When I was back on base, I would be at the base police station. I never actually worked for the squadron. So they're like, oh, you're the disposable guy. So guess what? You're going to war. And, maybe you could attest to this. As I was in the military, and especially as being a police officer, I banged the shit out of my knees. I had so much knee problems from making arrests, from fighting people, from doing all the range where you have to get on your knees and go prone and up and down and all that shit. And I would tell them, like, my knees jacked up, and nobody would believe me. Like, even medical wouldn't believe me. So in order to go to war, you had to be fit for duty. You had to go see a flight surgeon. I see the flight surgeon and he starts playing around my knee and it's kind of moving and stuff. And he's like, dude, you're all jacked up. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. I've been saying this for, 4 or 5 months and no one believes me. He's like, you're not fit for duty. And so that essentially what actually led me to get out, because I had physical therapy for 6 months. I had arthroscopic surgery. I had more physical therapy. And then the last straw was I'm sitting in the doctor and he's injecting a big long ass needle into my knee to give me some steroids. I'm like, Doc, how long do I have to do this? He's like, the rest of your career. And I was like, I'm not going to do this for another 10 years. And I started to separate at that time.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your service. Yeah, it sounds like you went through a lot for sure. Yeah.
It wasn't, it wasn't easy. Like I have PTSD. I was assaulted at my first command and had some childhood trauma and some other things I had to deal with. And I was a very angry person, like all the time. Like, and I say this on multiple episodes, like if someone cut me off, I would chase you down and yell and scream and flip you off. If you messed up my order at a restaurant, I would flip out and, get in the waiter or waitress face and bitch and complain. And I took a lot of my anger out emotionally on my wife and my kids. Now, luckily I didn't do any physical harm to them, but that's still some form of abuse. And while it takes, two to have a marriage and be married, I always tell people that 60% of the marriage was my fault, the downfall of my marriage. So after 18 years, I got divorced, right? And my new wife now, we've been together for almost 9 years. We've been married for 1 year now. And I knew I didn't want to lose her. Like the things where my ex-wife would say, I can't help you, my current wife would always say, how can I help you? And just that change in sentence is huge, right? To hear when you're mentally strung out or you're having a bad day and you don't know how to control it, to hear how can I help you versus I can't help you. So I knew I didn't want to lose my relationship with my wife. She's such an amazing, wonderful person. The backbone of everything I do, supports me, doing this podcast, running my business. And so I knew I had to change. And I don't have any big aha moment. I just sat here one day and I'm like, I can't act like this. I hate this. I don't like myself. And I saw something on social media about practicing gratitude, right? And I was like, I laughed. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this can't work. But I decided to try it anyway. And so probably for well over a year now, every time I go to bed, I'm not very active religiously, but I consider myself a Christian. I did accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior a long time ago when I was in high school. So I pray, but then I also thank God. I'm like, hey, I appreciate my wife. Thank you for this house that I'm in. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do what I'm doing. And it made me start to realize that my life really isn't that bad. And as I tell these stories from other veterans like you or the mom who, got assaulted and beaten and left for dead, and now she owns her own business and she's helping women, or the person that had, a 400-pound fat loss and now they're a fitness coach, I realized, like, holy shit, my life really wasn't that bad. Yeah, I went through some bad things, but compared to these stories that I tell, why am I bitching and complaining? Like, I should be living, a purposeful life. I'm, getting up there in age. I'm 47 now, and I'm just like, this is my time to have what I want, do what I want, live how I want. And being negative, upset, and worried all the time, that's not going to help me get there. And I still have bad days, like I said earlier, but I have more good days than bad. And that's the key. Like that's what we have to do. And I'm really trying to advocate for men's mental health, not just veterans or first responders, as that's like the best, the worst, horrible sector, but just people in general, men in general, to realize that it's okay to not be okay. And if you're feeling sad or depressed or angry, it's okay to be vulnerable and talk about it and speak about it. We can't bottle this stuff up anymore and hold it inside and try to be that tough. Oh, it's not going to bother me. Because what ends up happening is we just completely explode and we lose our shit, and then we do stupid shit, whether we get in a car accident or we drink like crazy or do some drugs or cheat on our wife, and then everything gets worse. So you have to, change. And I had to really change and hold on to values like fitness, mindset, and discipline to make sure I stay regulated in everything I do.
Yeah, I liked what you said about living a purposeful life and then having a spiritual power to help you do that, because I think that's the crux of the whole thing. That's what my life has been. And the guys that couldn't do it for whatever reason are the ones that didn't survive. And alcohol was a huge problem for a lot of vets, and in my era anyway. Today, I think it's a lot better. I think the VA has a lot of really great programs for veterans, and we do certainly get a lot more recognition, not the Vietnam vets so much, but the other veterans and so on and so forth. And you talk about battle harder. That's how you want to live a purposeful life and do the things you want to do. I found in my situation, I've always been challenged by difficult things, because I know that I can do, if I do difficult things, I will have a new degree of self-respect and accomplishment and all those things that we need to feel if we're going to be vibrant and be able to help other people, right? So it all
Right.
kind of ties together. When we were hiking the Appalachian Trail, we were in, I'll sing about this today, we were in Pennsylvania, and we were above the Lehigh River. And what happens is you go down the river, go down the mountain to the river, and you can see the river. And then you cross the river, and the highest cliff on the Appalachian Trail is Blue Mountain, which is on the north side of the Lehigh River in Pennsylvania, believe it or not. Yeah. And I remember I fell down every day on the hike, and I broke, I don't know, 4 or 5 poles.
Wow.
Going down was the worst, especially when I had an artificial knee. I got a one leg that doesn't have anything in it. My right leg doesn't have any medial meniscus or anterior cruciate ligaments. That's why I limp. That's where a lot of the pain comes from. And going down, I just remember today, I was even thinking about going down that mountain, how hard it was. But knowing I get down there, I can walk flat across the bridge,
Right.
and then go up the other side. Now, my brother came down the mountain, decided he wanted to hike up it the next morning, because he normally went south and I normally went north. And so he climbed it the next day. I have a picture in my book. I don't know if you can see this, but this is Ronnie on top of the mountain. You can see the river way down there.
Yeah.
See how high it is? You can see the bridge there.
That's crazy.
He met 2 women. They were paralyzed on the side of that cliff. Each of them had a 40-pound pack. One of them's name was Blossom, and I think the other one was Bubbles. Or something. Everybody had a trail name. My trail name was Rambo. My brother gave me that trail name, and my brother helped him get up that mountain.
That's nice.
They wouldn't have been able to do. They were absolutely paralyzed with fear. But because he was in the right place, he was not. My brother's afraid of heights too, believe it or not. But he didn't look down, and he helped them get up the top of that mountain, so they could continue on their trek. Yeah, we had a lot.
When you were in the JAG, do you have any crazy stories, or do you have like one crazy case that you can't believe you had to represent the military member on?
Yeah, actually. So we were doing Article 32 trials, and one of the first ones I did, a guy was caught sleeping on watch.
Oh, wow.
Which in the Marine Corps is like a death penalty.
Yeah.
That's 2 years in the Who Scout in the bridge.
Wow.
And so I was his defense attorney. Now in the military, you have a trial. The jury is, in this case, I think it was a colonel, lieutenant colonel, and a major. You're not tried by your peers.
Right.
So, and the prosecutor was like, well, I got this one, I don't know. I had talked to a couple of the other Marines that were with him, or served with him, or in his unit or whatever. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I asked some questions. I called a witness. and put a little doubt in there as to whether or not he was actually asleep. And they acquitted him.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nobody could believe it. So then I did a few more, and I had another one. And when I got the second acquittal by Marine Corps officers, they made me a prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
That's when they started sending me down to Puerto Rico. But Rob, it was amazing because when I was in that bar, passed out on the pool table, and woke up and heard the radio talking about 1st Marine Division going into Vietnam, and made the decision to walk out of there and go enlist, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. None. And then when they sent me to JAG school, I get over to Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island, and everybody else in the class, they're all captains. They're all lawyers, graduated from law school. I don't even have a college education, right?
Wow.
And so, doing a lot of drinking and stuff. And I decided not to drink during the week, and I was just going to focus on it. I ended up being the platoon man the honor man of the platoon.
Nice.
And I pissed them all off. They couldn't believe it. I had some, so anyway, my point is that I discovered I had a gift. Right? I was able to analyze things well, and I ended up being a litigator, so obviously I could think on my feet, and pretty good communicator and all that kind of stuff. And it gave me a life path. Like you were talking about, a purposeful life is the best gift that our higher power can give us, and make sure we stay on that path. And I took that path. And then I had to take the path of a sober man, or I was going to destroy myself and everything I'd accomplished. So that was another path, a new path. But God put me on that path and taught me how to stay sober, helped me to stay sober.
You said that you had to be on a different path and you had to decide to go sober. What led to that decision to eventually go sober? And essentially, I think we did talk about you going to Alcohol Anonymous for a little bit. How long have you been sober now? Like, what's that like for you?
I've been sober a little over 11 years. My drinking for most of my adult life was kind of normal, a lot of it. There were times when I certainly could have done a little less and been better off, but I didn't have any really serious consequences. I mean, I knew I had an affinity for alcohol that was not normal. And, I learned that alcoholics metabolize alcohol different, and we create a lot of acetone, which a normal drinker, they get that, they stop drinking because they don't want to anymore. And that's what creates that thirstiness in us. And so I was in my early 60s, I was really losing control. I retired because I didn't want to, mess up my whole reputation as a pretty good attorney and a litigator. So, and I wanted to focus in on my sobriety, but I had to go full bore into the program. And that meant I had to seek a spiritual power, because my power was just not enough, right? So if I had to have a greater power outside of myself. And then I found that in the rooms, and that led me down a path I never imagined. I remember looking in the mirror at 68 years old on a 10-day air vodka vacation, which means all I did was drink, pass out, and drink some more. And I was totally depressed and everything. I remember looking in the mirror thinking, you are just a worthless piece of manure. When in reality, I'd had a pretty good life, until the alcohol took over and I became the prisoner. And I finally fell into the arms of a really good man who had 30 years of sobriety. And he said, there's a better way. And I took his way. And he taught me how to pray to that God you don't believe in, or you get drunk again. And I didn't want to do that. So, and it worked out, Rob, but it was touch and go for a while. But luckily, by the time we did the trail, I had 4 years of sobriety. I was pretty solid. I'd been helping guys for about 3 years. Pretty much after I completed the steps, started working with other guys. It just worked out that way. And it was fantastic for me. They didn't all make it, so it's a tough business, but everyone.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's a testament to, I guess, your purpose and your perseverance, because like you said, you did seen what I would assume is kind of like an illustrious career, and you survived, Vietnam of all things, which there in itself is such a crazy thing and a blessing in disguise. And to be able to what I like about this and your story, and you telling me this, it just shows you that your age doesn't matter. If you want to overcome something, you just have to decide to do it, and then you have to find what works for you or what way you're going to do it to get over it. And you found the support through AA. You found essentially a path back to religion, which helped you get through it. And I'm assuming that some of the activity that you talk about doing, walking the trail and meeting these goals, have helped you stave off from going back down that path. Is that true, so to speak?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Alcoholics were never immune to the possibility, of course, and that's why we don't, make a spectacle of ourselves as far as recovery goes, because if we go back out, then we're damaging the program, and I don't want to do that for sure. But your whole life changes once you make a connection with a higher power and you start doing the right thing every day. It's a whole different lifestyle, and I couldn't have been there for my brother if I hadn't been sober and had that experience. And I did a meeting in my head every day on the trail, and it was like an hour long, and I would pretend I was in a room with a whole bunch of people, and I would do the readings in my head, and then I would have a meeting and somebody bring up a topic relating to sobriety. And I tell you, Rob, that was the best hour every day, because I would be walking in the mountains, really hard stuff, and it was just seemed effortless for that hour. And then every morning we had it set up. The guys would call me, a couple of guys, and we talked every day. They were helping keep me sober, and I was helping them keep sober. So, and that was, and there were some spiritual experiences on the trail that are hard to believe. I almost died one night in the Smoky Mountains in really bad. I got in a very bad spot. I pitched my tent on a cliff, basically, and the freight trains of wind came up during the night. And I felt like I was in a body bag, and I was just going to be blown off that mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was praying to God, if this is it for me. I mean, I survived in Vietnam. I survived so many, and I kind of felt like that a little bit, and I'm like, okay, God, if this is your plan for me, I will accept it. But I really would prefer to stick around and help some more guys if it's okay. And but sometimes the freight trains would come right at me. Ronnie asked me afterwards, he said, what were you doing, holding on to the rods? Because we had Mount Everest type tents, right? They're built. I said, hell no. I was pushing down with the stakes with my hands and feet as hard as I could so it wouldn't rip out of the ground, or I'd be gone. I would have been killed for sure.
How high up were you, like, at this point, do you think?
Well, I had walked to what was called a false gap on the map. Well, it was properly named because it was no gap. Just kind of a little dip in the trail. It was about 20 feet wide where I was, and it dropped off hundreds of feet straight down. It's on the Fontana side of the Smoky Mountains from Klingman's Dome. And when I took a leak before I got in the tent, and I looked straight down, and there was a tree behind me. Hundreds of feet down, and I'm like, oh my God, this is really not a good spot. But it was almost dark. I had no choice. So the next day, I told Ronnie, I was pushing down those stakes as hard as I could. One of the guys called me that morning, and he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. But I tell you what, it was an awful night. And I told him a little bit, and he said, yeah, I've been watching the weather, and it said there was tornadoes there. I didn't get hit in a tornado. I would never survive that. But, I felt like that was a spiritual affirmance that I was doing the right thing. That I had a purpose. I had a purpose.
I like that. I think signs are important, and it seems like you've been giving some signs your whole entire life. Once again, from survival to given a job that you in turn turned it into a good career, and then now this. So walk us through so how did the book, I'm assuming the book is based off the fact that you went and decided to do this trail in your later stage of age. How did the book become born, so to speak, and what is the book about?
The book is about walking the trail and how we did it. And I took 5,000 pictures. I hiked the trail differently than Ron. Ron was trying to use the physical pain to overcome the emotional pain of the death of his wife. Right. So he's just marching. I'm here, in the morning, I'm here, I'm going to go there. And that's what he did. I had a whole different mindset. I'm like, I'll never be here again. One step at a time. I'm going to try to enjoy this as much as I can. And I took 5,000 pictures. So I got, and they were great pictures. I mean, I would come around a corner and I go, wow, look at that. And I would have to some days I would take 40 or 50 pictures and I would think everyone was better than the last one I took. They were just, so I had all these pictures. Ronnie kept track of where we were every day, where we went, how far it was. I kept track of the names of the mountains, the trail names of the people and stuff like that. So in our journals, I put them together. We kind of had a whole story, right?
Wow.
So I decided to do the book for the family. So the first version I did was very much like the one that was published by Wildebeest. They did a little editing of the wording and stuff like that, but overall it was about the same. But it was for the family. And then I realized, well, I was giving them all away, and I was giving them to people who said, I know somebody that needs to be inspired, and this sounds kind of inspiring, and I would give them the book. And then sometime later I would hear back and say, it really helped them to take a new attitude and have a new way of life and not just sit on the couch waiting to die kind of a thing, So, and that was my primary purpose, actually, to try to help other people, because that's what God wanted me to do. That's why I'm here. I should never even gotten out of Vietnam. I could tell you stories. You was like, no way. And Ronnie the same. But so he had a different plan for us, I believe.
I believe so too, 100%. And it sucks that what happens to the veteran community, and especially, once again with the Vietnam veterans right now. I mean, unfortunately, we're losing you guys at an alarming rate. And I think it's important to have the highlights and show the stories that are like yours, where you didn't succumb to all the shit that happened out there and decided to, have a purposeful life. And I love that. And so do you still try to help guys in AA and everything?
I do. I go to at least one meeting a day. I get to go. I don't have to go. I get to go to meetings every day, at least one. I do 8 or 9 a week. And every day I'm working with guys. We do some reading. We talk about how to stay sober pretty much every day. So I've been blessed with some very good chances to help people. And it's God's working through me. I'm not anything special. I know that, but I am special to the extent I will make myself available to anyone who sincerely wants to get better. Right. So, yeah, that's a wonderful gift. Recently, a couple of years ago, I had a guy ask me, he said, you've been through a lot. If you could go back and, like get sober 20 years ago, would you do that? And I said, absolutely not. And I'm telling you the same thing right now. If somebody said to me, would you go back? I said, no, because I wouldn't know what I know now. I wouldn't have the knowledge and, to be kind of blunt about it, the wisdom. I mean, it's just, I can help guys because I have a ton of bad experience. And I had a ton of good experience, right? And being a sober man and living a sober life and being the man that God wanted me to be. And what a gift. What a blessing.
That's what it's about. I mean,
yes, sir.
The same way, I've been through hell and back with a lot of things in my life. And if anybody says, oh, if you could go back in time and erase this or do that. But like you said, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now and get to hear this amazing story if I decided to go back and change things. Unfortunately, some people go through some very bad things, some very dark things. And it's not fair and it's not fun for anybody, but we have to figure out how to use this to have a purposeful life, to have a service mindset, to help people instead of just becoming a victim. I always like to say victor over victim mentality. And, playing the victim only lasts so long, regardless of why you're doing it, before it just becomes pointless. So you might as well live a purposeful life. And man, I'm so glad I got to have this conversation. You know, you're the only Vietnam veteran I've had the opportunity to speak to on this. Besides us normal veterans, I wish more people would take the time to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you guys. So, you know, how important as we get older, and I know especially as a man, as we get older, it's harder to make friends. It's harder to be around people. We kind of get set in our ways. With you being able to help people and talk to people, whether it's older or younger, how important in the later stages of life is it to surround yourself with other people?
Oh, I think it's vital. There's two aspects to it. One is I do have, I can share a lot of things that will help other people. But by maintaining my contact with other people, I mean, I see so many people my age, some of my friends, the ones that are still around, you know, they're sitting on the couch waiting to die. That's no way, you know, they're worried about, oh, am I going to have cancer tomorrow? No, I don't worry about any of that stuff. I'm still walking 7, 8 miles a day. You know, I'm maintaining my lifestyle as best I can. I have no idea what the end is going to look like, but I know if I keep going the way I am, I don't have to worry about that at all. I don't ponder my fate. I'm blessed every day. I'm super grateful every day. And I just roll with that to be helpful to other people and be around. You got to be around people. It's really sad because a lot of people that are older, there are some that are very vibrant, and I have some in my family, but by and large, that's not the case. They get bogged down by aches and pains and fear of, oh my God, Charlie's got cancer. I wonder if I'm going to get it and all that. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't judge. I don't, you know. So I want to be one of those vibrant ones that's around people as much as possible and makes connections and is there for them, you know. And sometimes that's just being with them. I don't have to be talking all the time or just being around people like you said. And you've had a lot of hardship in your life, obviously, too. And look what you're doing. You're being a host and you're giving me this opportunity. That's pretty important in itself, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love this. Even, you know, just it's something I like to look back. And I was a guest on a podcast earlier, and I was talking about this a little bit. If we go back in history before, you know, TV, cell phones, technology, people told stories, right? And there was something personable and powerful about sitting around a campfire or sitting around your living room, you know, with your family. Even now, for the most part, I've always made it a point that when me and my wife are eating dinner, we're engaged with each other. We're not on cell phones. We're not watching TV, and that's important. And so when I started this podcast, it was more for not only my own therapy, because when I get to hear, I mean, I'm a combat vet, but I didn't see combat. You're a combat vet who saw combat, and you're kicking ass, and that's the kind of thing that should give people hope. And by us telling these stories, we can give hope, and we can give hope all over the world because anybody can access my podcast anywhere. So, you know, there may be a language barrier, but other than that, they can hear your story. And I just wish as we get older, my father is up there in age, and I see kind of the same things with, you know, he doesn't call me unless I call him. He doesn't really like, he's more kind of like a shut-in, so to speak. He'd rather be at home sitting on the couch watching TV, and he complains about everything. And I don't want to live that life. I want to live the life of, like you said, just every day that I'm above ground, it's a blessing, and I can continue on in a way to either help people, empower people, make people smile or happy. Like, we just have to be better humans across the board, regardless. So somebody, whether they're struggling with addiction, mental health issues, older or younger, what advice would you give them, or what would you like to say to them here on this episode?
Just to try to live a positive lifestyle and do the difficult things one step at a time. You know, keep your brain where your feet are. And if you don't like where you're thinking, move your feet and go somewhere else and do something for somebody else. And your problems will seem a lot smaller and you'll be happy. You'll have some serenity and peace in your life and some love, you know. I think that's very important. You know, I had a host one of the podcasts real quick after was over, he started telling me about his father and what he was going through. And it ended up that and I would do the same for you. If you know somebody you think that the book might help. I ended up sending his dad anonymously the book. And with it, I autographed it and stuff like that. And I wrote in it, I heard you might be struggling, and so maybe this will help a little bit, because the son didn't want to know that it was coming from him. And son of a gun, I got it has my email on it. So I got a message back from the guy saying, it really helped me out. I think I'm going to do a different thing than what I've been doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I offer that too.
Where is your book available for people that do want to get it?
It's on Amazon, Thrift Books. It's on pretty much all of the book selling places. You just put in a spiritual passage, it'll pop up, or my name, or they can go to my website, randtimmerman.com. It's just my name, randtimmerman.com. That's it. Or they can email me at rand.timmerman@gmail.com. I'm not doing the internet, all the social stuff. I'm on LinkedIn, but only for communication. I'm probably going to have to change that. I'm 80 years old. It's a little hard for me.
It's never too late, brother. It's never too late.
Okay, thanks.
So what's next? Before I ask you a final question, what's next for you? Like, what are you looking forward to? Is there anything you're currently working on?
I'm working on some presentations I've been involved with some veterans groups, usually through author type situations. Right now I've made a good connection with some people down in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm in 2 veteran writing groups. I've written about 8-9 books, a bunch of short stories. I've been published in a couple of magazines. So I'm going to do a book on Vietnam, I think. And I have another one that's a historical novel about a hitman in Syracuse that I met through program. Yeah, through the program.
Oh, wow.
That was interesting. He was blind. I took him to probably 500 meetings in 2 years, and listened to all his stories, and it was fascinating. So that one's going to be published this fall. So it's a historical novel. He's no longer with us, but he was there's a guy who was a complete piece of crap until he was about 30.
Oh, wow.
And he got sober in the same program I'm in, and got married, helped hundreds of people, ended up being a manager in a large plant here because he was a mathematical genius, responsible for all their high-end equipment, making it run, fixing it and stuff like that. Amazing guy, just amazing. But man, he was a miracle to be alive. But anyway, that's going to be an interesting book.
That's the power of perseverance right there. So before we close out the show, Rand, I always ask my guests this. What's your definition of turning pain into progress?
Just do the next right thing one step at a time. Don't get bogged down. Just keep moving. Keep doing the right thing. Good things for other people. Don't worry too much about your own self. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yep.
Guys, my final thoughts is this, day by day, you got to take things day by day with a grain of salt. You can't get bogged down by the weight of the world, like Rand said. Such an amazing story, an amazing man. I hope you guys get to listen to this whole entire podcast through and see just the passion he has for a service mindset. Just like Coach Rob, he overcame his demons in a different way and decided to use that for the force of good. Check out the book, A Spiritual Passage. Sounds like an amazing book with some great photography and pictures. May even want you to get you out to go hike that trail and have an adventure. So, man, like to have a Vietnam veteran. So first of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for all the shit you went through from one veteran to another veteran. It's been an honor, sir, to have you on the show. And I look forward to seeing what comes next from you as life carries on, and we'll stay connected. And guys, until next time, this has been another episode of the Battle Hard Podcast. And as I always like to say before I end the show, remember to always be fit for battle. Thank you.
You've just heard another real comeback story on the Battle Harder podcast, where we turn pain into progress and remind you that rock bottom is just the starting line. If today's message hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You might just change their life. Subscribe, leave a review, and join the mission at battleharder.com. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay dangerous, and keep battling harder.